All right, let's do it. Kubernetes and VR, that's what you're all here for. Before we get rolling, just a quick anecdote. This is a screenshot of Lisa Conference 2014, took place in this exact same hotel. There was a birds of a feather session. This is not like a general session at all. This was just a small room with like maybe 20 people in it talking about Kubernetes. This was 2 years ago. And now we're back here for KubeCon with more than 1,000 people. It's pretty remarkable. I'm excited to be here. Thank you all for coming and listening to me speak. I hope I don't let you down. Who am I? My name's Ryan. Sorry about the cheesy, I had to do this slide. Like people do these slides all the time where it's like, you know, you use the syntax for whatever programming language or open source software you're using. I work for Lonely Planet. I'm a DevOps engineer there. We use Kubernetes in production every single day. It's fantastic, hence the reason why I'm here. I hang out in the Slack channel, the Kubernetes Slack channel, Ryan_SF. Awesome community. I highly encourage you to check it out. If you have questions, if you're new, even if you're experienced and you just want to like answer questions for new people, I highly recommend you do so. It was an invaluable resource for me when I first started learning Kubernetes, and I help out in there as much as I can when people have questions. So why am I here? I'm here to share my ideas. I'm here to inspire you to create and try new things. Everything you're going to see here shortly is very experimental. This was just a small idea I had maybe 8 months ago, and I saw the CFP for KubeCon, and I thought that was a good opportunity to force myself to execute on it. So that's why I'm here now. Just a little bit more about me. I've been using Kubernetes for about 10 months. We're running 1.2 at Lonely Planet. I've been using Docker since pre-1.0. I've been a DevOps engineer by trade for about 5.5 years. So what's this really all about? Again, like I mentioned, I saw the CFP for KubeCon. I really like Kubernetes. I really like VR. Obvious conclusion, let's put them together. What if I developed an application that could pull Kubernetes inside of VR and I could do stuff with it? As you can imagine, there were a lot of problems and questions. How do I demo it? How the hell do I demo it? What does it do? I have no idea. What can I do? Can I walk around? Can I touch things? I had no idea how to develop for VR. I don't know Unity. I'll get to some of the options in a minute. What does a pod look like? What can I do? Can I destroy them? Why would I even do this? Is there any practicality? I don't really know. Eventually, maybe. We'll talk more about that soon. So I had to weigh my options. Again, Unity, a lot of pros. It's cross-platform. The editor's easy to use. VR itself, developed in-house by Steam, basically is built on top of the Unity engine. So all of the components, all of the things you need to actually build an application that can interact via VR is basically supported out of the box with Unity. You just create a scene, you drop in the controls, and then you could strap on a headset and walk around. Cons, I don't know C#. Again, I don't know C#. It's compiled. You have to distribute the application, and it's just not a straightforward path that I wanted to take. Unreal, I'm not really even going to spend any time here. I didn't really look into it. I knew it was going to be a larger time investment than I had, and I didn't think the benefits would be worth a while. So what does that leave us with? WebVR. So there's actually a thing called WebVR, and it's JavaScript that runs in your browser, and you can create VR applications on it. Some of the pros, it's JavaScript. Again, it works in the browser. It supports right now, it supports nearly every VR hardware device. That means if you pull it up on an iPhone 7 and put it in a Google Cardboard and tap the VR button, you can use VR on your phone. You could use it on your desktop. When Google Daydream comes out, you'll be able to use it on that. It's in the browser, so it's available to you just by clicking Safari or clicking Chrome and going to the web URL. It's open source. It's maintained in-house, so the main framework is called A-Frame. It's maintained in-house by Mozilla. They have a team of people that are much smarter than I am that do nothing but build VR for the web. The WebVR spec just hit 1.1, I think maybe a month or 2 weeks ago. It supports game controllers. It supports the Vive. I think it supports the Oculus now with the Oculus Touch. Cons, it's JavaScript. That's a pro and a con for me. As a DevOps engineer, I don't write JavaScript on a daily basis. I have no reason to. But it was more familiar to me than learning C# or learning whatever C language Unreal is written in. It is the most immature of the three options. It's very experimental. You literally have to download if you're on a PC. On mobile, the support's pretty solid. On a PC, you have to download a custom compiled experimental build of Chrome or the Firefox nightly build, and they change about once every 2 weeks, and like 2 out of 3 builds, your application will work, and then the latest one, it won't work, or it'll do crazy things. It's very much experimental. So I'm going to talk about sort of all the components in play, how I actually put all of this together. Minikube is just a binary that you can throw on your machine and run. It starts a tiny VM, and I'm probably explaining this terribly, but you can run Kubernetes on your Mac or on a server or wherever. And you can kubectl, run x -- image or pass it a manifest file for deployment. It works the same way as it does in the cloud. It's just local to you. So that was what I chose to go with for basically building this prototype. On the front end, the thing that's actually in the browser, so I talked a little bit about A-Frame, which is the VR framework by Mozilla. Kevin, who's one of the core maintainers, he wrote, with A-Frame, you basically have entities and components. An entity would be like an object, like a sphere or a cube, and a component would be some property that you can apply to that cube. Like this cube can fly, or this sphere can roll. And so people build components and they share them on GitHub. And so there's one that ties into React, which also I did not know. I did not know React. So I had to learn that too. On the back end, I have a Node.js API. I'm using the GoDaddy library for basically tying into the Kubernetes Watch API and streaming all of the events over a socket and listening for pods to start or pods to be destroyed. And that's talking through kubectl proxy directly to Minikube. So kubectl proxy, for those of you that don't know, is just a command you run for kubectl that sets up a proxy on a port on your local machine and allows you to talk directly to the Kubernetes API without needing to worry about authentication or passing certificates or all, It's great for developing against the API. So I'm running a kubectl proxy locally on my Mac also. And then the communication between the events happens via WebSockets. So the Node.js backend and the A-Frame front end are both listening over WebSockets and emitting events and consuming events. So for example, if I run a pod and the Node.js backend says a new pod is coming up, it says I'm going to fire off this event over a socket to the browser or to whoever else is listening. In this case, it's the browser. And the browser says, oh, there's a new pod. Let me basically build it. And within React, I have a React component. Different type components are slightly different in VR and game space than they are in front-end web space, but a React component that says, okay, now create another one of these objects inside of my VR scene, or delete an object from my VR scene. Moving on. So what did I come up with? What does it look like? Disclaimer. Yes, I'm pissing off the demo gods on a level that I've never seen before. There's so much technology involved. Literally, I'm running a Thunderbolt Ethernet to my computer to get the networking working. I actually don't have Wi-Fi on this Windows PC, but I also want to talk over a local hostname and not have to go to the web. I tried to remove the internet as a factor here. I mean, the VR is pretty solid. I don't anticipate issues with actually the gear working. But there's a lot of components here. The Node.js, there is one bug with the Node.js API where it times out after like, I don't know, it's about 15 or 20 minutes. So I'm going to start it up fresh before we start going, so hopefully that won't happen. Everything's bleeding edge. I'm running Windows 10. I'm running experimental build of Chrome. I'm on a PC. Yeah, you get it, okay? Let's hop into it. Can you, mysterious man in the back, please switch me over? Awesome. Way to go, man. That guy's been a huge help, by the way. I really appreciate his help. Without further ado, so I'm starting up the Node.js backend on my Mac. And I have the kubectl proxy already running, and the front-end app is ready to go. It's listening. So I'm going to flail around down here for you guys. Turn these on. Yes, I occasionally stream MLB games from Reddit. I'm sorry, I don't have cable TV. Hopefully my IP address did not change. Looks like it might. Bear with me here. I promise we will get to a functioning demo shortly. This is all very dangerous, uncharted territory. Anyone know off the top of their head how to edit Etsy hosts on a Windows PC? Didn't think so. This is why Stack Overflow exists. I've searched this already. Right. Just need to run Notepad as an administrator. Easy. So what I'm doing here is I have most of the application is connecting to a specific host name just for purposes of local demonstration. But my Windows PC doesn't know. Apparently the IP address changed on the way down from my room, so. Yeah, there we go. Voila. Okay. Just got to get my IP address. Unplug that for a minute. After this session is, I believe, a lunch break. I want to keep all of this set up, and I want to encourage you to try it out and play with it if you want. If you haven't tried VR before, it's a good, mild entry point to actually trying it out. Okay. What's my IP? What's my 11.12? 10.11.12. I apologize for not sorting this beforehand. Is Control S save in Notepad? Save, yeah. Okay. Aha, it worked. Okay. So this is a VR scene in the browser. I can actually, I'm on a keyboard right now, but like I mentioned earlier, it has full gamepad support. Not all of the functionality that I've built into this is supported on gamepads, but it is fully supported on the Vive. So that is where I will start. And I'm actually going to restart the Node API one more time so it doesn't crap out on me. Okay. Moment of truth. The crappy thing about WebVR right now is they force you to, in order for me to enter, so what I'm seeing right now inside is just like the splash screen for the Vive. In order to enter WebVR, they force the user to click this button in the lower right corner to protect them. Instead of just, so there's a sensor in here that knows when I enter VR. Instead of utilizing that, they just figured they should force you to awkwardly try and click the button, which is absurd. Oops. Okay. So I'm going to enter VR mode. Okay, I'm inside the matrix. Please yell if I'm going to run into anything. First thing I want to show off, the controllers. Got little Kubernetes logos, animating and like floating. Can you guys see this okay? Cool, I'm going to switch hands here. Actually, I don't use the Vive without putting on the straps. It's like the next generation Wii where everyone broke their TV. Cool, so controllers. They took a long time to get the animations and stuff. So I am in Kubernetes right now. If you've used a Vive before, you've probably played any of the Steam games where you can teleport around. So by holding, you can see in VR here, this blue button that's lighting up is maps directly to the controller. So you can see as I click buttons on the controller, they light up. So it knows which buttons I'm pressing. So by pushing the middle button, I can teleport around the scene here. So I'll just kind of walk. I'm basically in this like star field. There's these kind of like little floaty particles. They look tiny on the screen, but in-game they look really cool. And if I walk over to the edge, you can see I'm just basically on this endless void that sort of just falls to nothingness. Oops. Head strap's falling off. In the middle there, we've got the KubeCon logo kind of just floating around. It's pretty cool. So all the lights are like dynamic. I don't know whether there's lights in space, but there is. I've got these like floaty red lights over here. Okay, so you're probably curious about all of these things. So basically the abstraction level inside of Kubernetes VR is on the pod level. So the objects that are around me are all pods. If I walk up to one, this is like a sprite. It's a label that shows the name of the pod. It follows my head wherever I go. I don't like how it looks. It looks really crappy, but it was the best I can do for the time being. So these pods, when I spawn into VR, it makes a request to Node.js and says, give me all the existing pods, and they just dynamically spawn into the world. So this one's got Nginx texture on it. So all of the textures on the pods are based on a label that I've applied to my manifest file in Kubernetes. So this manifest file has a label with the word type, or the key type, and the value Nginx. And then my front-end application has a mapping of different types to different images. So that's how I did the mappings on that. If I point, so I've got this laser pointer, if I point at it and click, I get this floaty sort of UI, which looks really cool in VR. So it's pulling in the metadata from the pod. I have the IP address, the time it was launched. I can touch pods, I can knock them over, I can pick them up and toss them. I don't know why, but you can. So let's have some fun here. So all of these that you see, so there's losing my controller tracking there. I'm not in a good spot. Come back. There it is, okay. So all of these objects that you see, so there's the Nginx texturized one, there's an Ubuntu, there's this kind of like default Kubernetes logo. So each of these represents, right now, a specific deployment type. So all of the blue ones are deployment, all of the Ubuntu ones are deployment, and all of the Nginx ones are deployment with X number of replicas. So what you'll see here in a second, and I kind of debated for a long time on how I actually wanted to interact with pods inside of VR. So I came up with this kind of fun idea where, and I'll do it the easy way first, or the hard way first. So you've got this endless void over here. Oh, there it goes. So that's just going to disappear into infinity. And what's actually going to happen is the VR application just sent a WebSocket post to Kubernetes and said, delete this pod. And I don't know if you saw that or not, but what actually happened is another pod just spawned back in. That's because this is a deployment, and when I delete pods, they replicate. Right, wait, there it is. So it takes exactly as long as it takes for Kubernetes to say, this pod is running and ready. So I thought, tossing it's kind of a hassle. Your arm will get tired of deleting pods all day, which I'm sure you all do. So I thought, we're in space. What if there was a more spacey way, oh, there it is, to get rid of pods. So my controller here actually has force push, so I can just point at pods and just send them flying through space. So I just deleted like 4 or 5 pods right there. So let me just turn around. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So they kind of just they just replicate on the back end and spawn back in. It was actually kind of jarring to see that happen the first time because I didn't realize I had run. If you run kubectl run, I'm not even facing you, am I? If you run kubectl run and pass an image, by default, you're going to get a deployment. And so I had created a few pods, and I was testing out the functionality to delete them. And then I actually went and created a deployment unintentionally, and I was in VR, and I deleted one, and all of a sudden it spawned back in, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. It would do that. So that was pretty cool. So I've also built, this was kind of a work in progress, it's not done yet, but if you click this menu button, if you click that, you get this little UI to pop up. And that, basically every time I open that, it queries for the latest response from Kubernetes API. So right now I'm just tracking number of pods and number of deployments. So if I just send a couple of these off, you'll see if I keep refreshing it, I'll get a little bit closer for you. So you'll see the number of pods increase first because it actually takes longer for them to terminate than it does to add. So it kind of goes up and then it'll start to balance back out in a second. You could stack pods on top of each other if you wanted. Maybe in the future that would I don't know, do something. There was so much, as I got more, I'm probably 100 hours deep into this at this point. It's really been a large time investment for me. As I got more and more into it, I just have so many ideas for different stuff. I just really didn't have time to execute on all of it. So yeah, as you can see, the replicated pods, they pull in the new metadata. So if you check your clocks right now, I don't know what time it is, but We'll check one that spawns in. There's no magic. This is all coming directly from the Kubernetes API. So this one just came in. Launched at 2106. What was that? 706? No, that's 19. Whatever. You get the point. What else? What else have I done? I really like these. They're really cool to look at. Oh, can I get a volunteer to not to yet try out the VR, but to run a pod for my machine? Anyone feel comfortable? You won't break anything, I promise. Just kubectl run. Don't make me do it myself. Come on. There we go. All right. My terminal should be open. Actually. Just need to. Oh man. Here. Okay. All right. So just you kubectl run something with like the. Yeah, you can even control F and like it'll. Hold on one second. Get oriented. All right, go ahead and run that. Anything? Is it doing anything? It's really cool looking in here. There we go. So he just created a new deployment, probably like 5 replicas. So yeah, I mean, there's no magic. Like that was direct from the. It was direct, right? I'm not lying. It was a kubectl command. That's a yes. Yep, there's no magic going on. It's all coming in real time. I've gotten kind of good at this. If I can do this. So it's like flying through the air right now. Where is it? Oh, I got it. Look at that. It's pretty fun. Just blast them around. You scaled the replica? You're crazy, man. Did they come in? I don't know. I'm not sure. There we go. We got 55 pods in here. Look at that. Unreal. This is the most pods that have ever been in a VR scene before. I promise. That's pretty much, well, actually I have one more thing to show you. Okay, too many pods. It's getting claustrophobic. Now, I haven't load tested this thing and it's starting to skip a lot. Okay, too many. Terminate. All right, let me end with the kicker here. So there's a little Easter egg I threw in here for you all. You'll probably recognize who this is. If I point at that, this is Kelsey Hightower, basically Mr. Kubernetes himself. This is actually terrifying. Oh, Jesus. It's like 30 feet big in VR. This is too big. And they just follow you. They just look at you wherever you go. It's terrifying. Yeah. That's it. That's all I got. Let me go to my end slides here. I can't believe that worked. He's upside down now. It was I came on Monday. I was carrying I took all this on the airplane, and I set it up in my hotel room as soon as I got here. And I was cranking out, I didn't really finish yet, so I was still cranking out some features. And I ordered room service, and the guy knocks on my door, and I open it for him, and he walks in, and my eyes are bloodshot. I've been in VR for hours. I look like a crazy mess. There's cords all over my room. He's just kind of dude, what are you doing in here? That was pretty awesome. Can you please switch back to the Mac? Should have given him a heads up first. Hello? Anyone backstage? Can you, okay. We'll stare at Kelsey for a little bit longer. What's that? No, can you switch me back to the Mac? I'm still seeing Windows. Oh, you know what? I unplugged it. I'm an idiot, sorry. Where did it go? I unplugged it and it there it is. Thanks. My fault. Okay. Conclusions. It worked. It's possible. It took a lot of time and personal effort for me to piece it all together, but you can do it. I think maybe there is some practical application. As I got more and more into the development cycle, I kept thinking of new things that would be really awesome. I just didn't really I didn't have the time to build them. But it is easy to visualize a cluster in VR. Like if you're onboarding someone and you want to describe your infrastructure physically, we're going back in time now. It's like, we want to see the servers physically. I don't know, you can do it with VR. You can teleport around and you could fly and you could have powers to force push pods in the void. Big thanks to everyone, first of all, that's here in this room. Everyone that's a Kubernetes contributor. I'm not yet one myself. I hope to be one day. The whole community, everybody in Slack, Mozilla, I don't know if there's anyone from Mozilla here, but thank you. Thank you, GoDaddy. I never thought I would say those words. Thank you, GoDaddy, for building the node wrapper that I used. It was the only one I tried that actually worked as promised. Like I said, lunch break is coming up. I'm gonna, if it's okay with the tech people in this room, I'll just keep this set up and you can try it out if you want. Questions? Performance is an issue. As he was up here scaling the replicas, this was a big problem for me, was like some of the components I used in A-Frame, just the way they were written or whatever. I mean, you're basically, the sprites, for example, on top of the pods are a canvas element. If you've ever had to center a div like on the web, imagine doing that in VR and 3D on a fake canvas element. Like, it's like the most pain. I think I lost an entire 2 days trying to get that text to render as a sprite. Like, so limitations, I mean, technology-wise, performance in WebVR is not ideal. Lighting, you can only have like a max of if I added more than 6, originally my first prototype, I had each pod had a glowing light under it. It looked really awesome. But as I added 5 or 6 pods, the performance just went to crap. So the performance is not great. But they're, basically with React, you have the power to dynamically add state to an object. So you can, for instance, when I pulled up that animated pod UI, if I injected that into the scene basically at creation time, the whole thing would slow down and pods would just freak out. But with React, you just have state on a component. So I would just track the state by clicking on the object and then render the actual component or the actual entity that I wanted to see and animate it in. So instead of having them all basically have that component when they get created, it only gets created when you click on the object. And that basically solved that problem. I just actually fixed that 2 hours ago in my room. So performance is definitely a limiting factor. Imagination, I guess, is one. It's okay, great, you rendered a cube in 3D, now what? It's what's the next step? I hours and hours searching through like 3D object libraries on the web to like figure out what a cooler thing would be than a cube for a pod, and I just botched it for the time being because it's such a time sink to like figure out. It's not going to be perfect. Like, just the idea is that there's an object, right, and you can interact with it. Once you're in VR and you're developing for VR is a humongous pain in the ass. I'll just say that. Like, to type on your Mac, like, first of all, everyone likes coding on a Mac or Linux PC. Not nobody, but most people don't like coding on Windows. And VR is not supported on the Mac. You have to have a Windows PC. It has to be pretty powerful, too. So in order for the development workflow to actually work, I'm done? Oh, man. What's happening in here next? Well, during lunch, can I keep this set up so people can try it out? Okay, thank you. Okay, can I still have a microphone or no? Okay. Okay. Thank you all. If you want to chat more, please talk to me in person. We're taking my mic away.